Faithful one, let me tell you who you really are. Not the version that has been worn down by waiting. Not the version that has started to wonder in the private hours when no one else can hear the questioning whether the things you have been believing for are actually coming, or whether hope itself was the thing you were wrong about. Not the version that goes through the motions of faith, because giving up feels too final, and pressing forward feels too heavy. Let me tell you what I have seen while watching you move through this difficult passage. I have seen you make choices for faithfulness on days when faithfulness offered no visible return, and the only reward for choosing it was the integrity of having chosen it. I have seen you get up and keep going on mornings when the case for getting up was not obvious, and nothing in your circumstances was providing encouragement for the effort. I have seen you absorb more than your share of the weight that surrounded you, keeping it from falling on the people you love at the cost of carrying it yourself, in the private places where only I could see what you were holding. I have seen you hold your tongue when speaking your real feelings out loud would have been easy and honest and entirely defensible. I have seen you kneel in prayer when the emotional reality underneath your words was closer to doubt than to faith. And I want you to understand something about those prayers that I suspect you have misunderstood. Those prayers did not fail to count. The fact that you prayed while doubting does not make the prayer a lesser prayer. It makes it a more costly one. It means that the act of coming to me required something from you, rather than feeling natural and easy, and you came anyway. That kind of coming is among the most significant things I witness in a human heart. It is the kind of faithfulness that does not depend on feeling faithful, that keeps its orientation toward me, even when every feeling is pointing in a different direction. I count those prayers. I honor those prayers. I receive those prayers. Not one of them dissolved into nothing. Not one of them missed the mark of my attention. Every one of them landed exactly where it needed to land, and accomplished in the invisible world exactly what it needed to accomplish. Now, let me open the door to what is arriving. And I want to move through each dimension of what blessing at your home means, because I want this to be as concrete and specific as I can make it, rather than resting in the kind of generality that is easy to receive in one moment and easy to forget in the next. When I say that love is arriving at your home, I am speaking about something that is both larger and more specific than the word usually carries when people use it in passing. I am speaking about love of a particular quality, not the version that is really just approval, the warm feeling that is present when you are performing well and absent when you are not at your best. Not the conditional warmth that operates as a kind of exchange, available in proportion to what is being received from you in the transaction. Not the love that is genuinely felt, but fragile, dependent on circumstances remaining favorable, disappearing when the circumstances change. I am speaking about the kind of love that sees everything about a person, including the parts that are not easy to see and the parts the person would not choose to have seen, and chooses that person fully, without reservation, with a commitment that does not waver when the person is less than their best. The kind that fills rooms, the kind that makes people feel safe in ways they cannot fully explain, the kind that restores what has been broken between people who genuinely care for each other and have been separated by misunderstanding or hurt, or the simple accumulation of distance that happens when two people are each carrying something heavy, and neither has the surplus energy to close the gap. I have been cultivating in you through this difficult season a capacity to both give and receive this kind of love that is genuinely larger now than it was when the difficulty began. The passage was enlarging. You can hold more. You can give more. You can receive more without the reflexive deflection that comes from having been hurt and having your nervous system learn to preempt further hurt by not letting love fully in. What is coming will find more room in you than what came before, found. And let me be specific about what love arriving looks like when it actually reaches your daily life, because I do not want this to remain at the level of beautiful abstraction. Love arriving looks like something shifting in the atmosphere between the people in your household. It looks like conversations that have been stuck for a long time, beginning slowly and tentatively at first, and then with increasing ease to move again. It looks like the particular distance that settles between people who love each other but have stopped being able to close the gap beginning to narrow. Not through a single heroic conversation, but through the accumulation of small moments of unexpected warmth, of choosing kindness when irritation was available, of remembering why the other person matters when what they just said makes mattering feel less obvious. It looks like forgiveness finding the runway it needs to actually land, rather than circling indefinitely in the air above the situation that required it. It looks like laughter returning to rooms that have been too serious for too long. It looks like people who are together actually being together, present, available, choosing each other's company rather than enduring it. That is what love arriving looks like. It is not usually announced with trumpets. It is most often felt in the small shifts, the slightly easier conversation, the unexpected moment of warmth, the look that communicates something that does not need words. Those small shifts are my signature on your daily life. When you feel them, recognize them for what they are. I want to speak at length now about provision, because I know this is a dimension of the blessing arriving that is not abstract for you. The need is specific. The gaps are real. The arithmetic that has been troubling you has numbers with actual values in it, and the distance between those numbers has been a source of genuine distress. I know the particular shape of the financial pressure you have been living with. I know how it arrives in the night hours when the numbers run themselves without your permission. I know the specific calculations that your mind returns to most persistently. The obligations that are not met, the resources that are insufficient, the gap between the two that stubbornly refuses to close in the way it needs to. I know that this kind of sustained financial pressure does something to a person beyond the practical problem it presents. It affects the way you see yourself. It affects the stories you tell about your situation and about your future, and about whether the future will be fundamentally different from the present, or whether this is simply the condition of your life indefinitely. It affects the quality of your rest and the freedom of your thinking and your capacity to be fully present in moments that deserve your full presence. I am not unmoved by any of that. Every aspect of what the financial pressure has cost you beyond the purely practical is known to me, and it is part of what I am addressing in the provision that is arriving. The provision I am releasing is not the thin, barely sufficient kind that meets the immediate need and leaves you immediately back at the edge of the same shortage with nothing to spare. That is not the character of what I have prepared for you. I am releasing provision with margin in it, provision that creates genuine breathing room between where you are and the line of pressure. Provision that gives you the experience of having enough, which is different from merely avoiding the experience of not having enough. Provision that puts you in a position to give generously to others, rather than calculating whether you can afford to give anything at all, because the life I designed for you was designed to include the dignity of generosity, and I will not leave you permanently in a posture where generosity is out of reach. I am a God who provides from resources that are not subject to the same scarcity that governs human supply. My storehouse is full. My ability to release into your specific situation exactly what your specific situation requires is not limited by the conditions that limit human giving. And I am releasing from that storehouse into your life now. I also want to tell you how the provision will arrive, because I think the path matters as much as the destination in this case. The provision I am releasing will come through channels that you did not open and from directions you were not watching. This is deliberate. When provision comes from where you expected it and in the form you predicted, there is always the possibility of attributing it entirely to your own effort and strategy. When it arrives from an unexpected direction, from a connection you did not engineer, through a door that opened without your pushing on it, in a form that meets a need you had only voiced privately, the source is unmistakable. I want to be unmistakable in this. I want what is coming to carry the signature of my provision rather than being absorbed into the category of natural cause and effect. So watch for surprises. Watch for opportunities that present themselves from directions you were not facing. Watch for people coming into your life whose arrival coincides precisely with something you needed that you had not told anyone but me. Watch for the phone call, the conversation, the unexpected word from someone you had not thought of, the connection that should not have happened but did. Those are the mechanisms of my provision. Those are my fingerprints on the visible world. Now I want to speak about the broader category of blessing arriving at your home. The whole life infusion of divine favor that I am releasing over every dimension of the life you inhabit. Blessing in my language is not a single transaction that delivers a specified benefit and concludes. It is more like a change in the conditions of your life, a shift in the atmosphere in which all of the specific circumstances of your daily existence operate. When blessing is present, the same effort yields more than it would yield without it. The same relationships become more generative and more nourishing than they were without it. The same work carries more satisfaction. The same ordinary days contain more beauty and more meaning because the layer of pressure and preoccupation that was partially blocking your ability to perceive what was already present has been lifted. Blessing is the multiplication of what you have, not always through numerical increase, but always through a qualitative enhancement of the whole experience of your life. The blessed life is not necessarily the life with the most resources or the fewest problems. It is the life in which the presence of God is functioning as an amplifier of what is good and as a buffer against what would otherwise be overwhelming. I am releasing that kind of blessing over your home, not just over your finances, though I have spoken specifically about that, not just over your relationships, though I have spoken specifically about that too, over the whole of it, over the quality of the time you spend in your life, over the quality of the rest you get, over the quality of your awareness of what is good about the life you inhabit, which is often more than the difficulty has allowed you to see, over the quality of your connection with me, the particular ease or difficulty of feeling that I am present, and that my presence is accessible to you without requiring extraordinary effort on your part to locate. I am making my presence more perceptible to you in this season. The sense of divine proximity, the specific feeling of being accompanied and held and attended to that some seasons carry more fully than others, is going to be stronger in the days ahead than it has been in the recent season. You are going to feel less alone. That is a specific promise, and I mean it specifically. Let me say something about the children, or the young ones in your life, the people who are younger in faith and in experience, and who look to you in ways you may not always be fully aware of. You are shaping people. You are forming something in them by the way you move through difficulty, by the posture you maintain when things are hard, by the things you say about who God is when the circumstances of your life could justify saying something very different. Those young ones are watching, and what they see in you during this season, the faithfulness that held even when it was costly, the love that kept going even when it was not fully returned, the decision to keep coming to God even when the answers were slow, all of that is becoming part of what they know to be possible. You are giving them a model of resilient, non-performative faith that is one of the most valuable things any person can pass to another. You may not have thought about your faithfulness in this season as something you were giving, but you have been giving it, and the giving is seen, and it is producing something in the people around you that will outlast this season and follow them into chapters you will not be present for. That is a legacy. Be encouraged by it. Let me address the issue of identity one more time, from a slightly different angle, because I want to make sure this is settled in you before we close. Who you are is not determined by what you have been through. Who you are is determined by who I say you are, and what I say is this: you are my child. That is not a metaphor or a helpful figure of speech. It is a description of what you actually are in relation to me. A child of mine, which means everything that belongs to a child in my family belongs to you. Not because you performed well enough to earn membership in the family, but because I chose to adopt you, to bring you in, to make you an heir. And adoption in my family is irrevocable. Once a child of mine, always a child of mine. Once an heir, always an heir. The inheritance does not become unavailable when the child fails. It remains prepared and waiting for the child to step into it. Your failure to access all of it in every season does not diminish what is prepared. It simply means it is waiting for the season in which you are ready to receive it fully. And that season is here. Being a child of mine means you have access to everything that belongs to your Father. Peace. Because your Father is the God of all peace, and what He carries, His children can access. Wisdom. Because your Father is the source of all wisdom, and His children are invited to ask and receive without limit and without rebuke. Provision. Because your Father owns everything that exists and has access to resources that are not constrained by any of the conditions that constrain human supply. Healing. Because your Father is the one who formed your body and knows its precise mechanics and has the capacity to restore whatever has been compromised. Love. Because your Father is love in the essential sense, not love as one of His qualities, but love as what He is at the deepest level of His being, and His children are saturated in that love from the beginning to the end of their existence. All of this is yours, not because you are extraordinary, but because your Father is, and you are His. Let me also speak about abundance in the non-financial dimensions of life, because provision has more faces than the financial one, and I want to name them all. There is an abundance of peace, the specific inner quietness that allows you to move through even difficult moments without being internally overwhelmed by them. The peace that Paul described as passing understanding, meaning that when you try to explain to someone why you have this quality of calm in the middle of a situation that should be producing panic, you cannot fully explain it because it is not generated by your circumstances or your capacities, but by a presence that is occupying the same space you are occupying and is larger than everything that is pressing in. That peace is part of what is arriving. You are going to notice in the days ahead that you have more of it than the circumstances justify. That is not an accident. That is me releasing into your inner life a quality of peace that your situation cannot produce on its own, but that my presence produces as a natural consequence of my being near to you. There is an abundance of clarity, the specific capacity to see clearly what matters and what does not, to make decisions from a grounded place rather than from the anxious, pressured place that the difficult season imposed, to distinguish between what is genuinely important and what only feels urgent because the difficulty amplified everything. In the season of difficulty, the noise-to-signal ratio gets high. Everything clamors for attention, and it becomes difficult to sort what genuinely needs your energy from what is simply loud. The abundance I am releasing includes a quieting of the noise and an amplifying of the signal, so that what is actually important becomes perceptible, and what is simply urgent but not important loses the grip it has been having on your attention. There is an abundance of energy, the specific vitality that is the natural state of a person who is not spending the majority of their reserves on managing sustained stress. When pressure lifts, energy returns. You are going to feel this in your body. A quality of wakefulness, of readiness for the day, of genuine engagement with what is in front of you that has been diminished during the hard season. You are going to wake up in the mornings ahead with something different in your chest. A lighter kind of readiness, an enthusiasm that is not performed but genuinely felt. The specific aliveness of a person who has been given a reason to be alive and knows it, and is stepping into a chapter that matches their capacity. There is an abundance of love in your relationships, the specific warmth and generosity and willingness to give the benefit of the doubt and capacity to forgive quickly and desire to be present that characterizes relationships that are flowing in the grace of God, rather than running on the reserves of human effort alone. The relationships in your life are about to become more nourishing. The ones that have been marked by friction are going to have more grace available in the interactions. The ones that have been shallow are going to be given the conditions to deepen. The ones that have been distant are going to be given the opportunity to close that distance. And new relationships are coming. Specific people whose arrival in your life at this specific moment is not coincidence but design, who carry something you need and who need something you carry, whose presence in your life will be one of the evidences that I know exactly what I am doing in the specific geography of your specific life. I want to spend time now on the question of worthiness, because I know it has been a question that the difficult season has amplified, and I want to address it fully. The question of whether you are worthy of the blessing that is arriving is not a question I am asking you to resolve through argument or through generating sufficient evidence of your worthiness. The question has already been answered. It was answered before you were born, before you had done anything that could qualify or disqualify you, before your record was long enough to examine and evaluate. The answer was yes. Before there was a question, the answer was yes. I decided before the foundation of the world that you were mine, that you were love, that the full resource of my provision and care would be available to you, that the destiny I had designed for you would be yours. And I have not changed my mind since. The things that have gone wrong in your life have not caused me to revise the answer. The moments of failure and weakness have not caused me to reconsider. The seasons of doubt have not changed the terms of the covenant I made with you before you could agree to it. The answer is yes. It was yes then, and it is yes now, and it will be yes at the end of all things, when everything else has passed away, and only the love remains. You do not earn this blessing. I want to be clear about that, because the pattern of earning is so deeply embedded in human experience that it is difficult not to apply it to the relationship with me. Everything in your human life has been conditional on what you do. The approval, the success, the love, the opportunity. You learned early that receiving requires performing, that belonging requires earning, that good things come to people who deserve them, and disaster comes to people who did not do enough to prevent it. That pattern is so deeply embedded that even when you believe theoretically that my grace is free, some part of you is still calculating your worthiness, still looking for the specific sins that disqualify you, still wondering whether the ledger is positive enough to justify the blessing. I want to address that part of you directly and say, stop calculating. You cannot earn this. It was never designed to be earned. I gave it because I give, because giving is the expression of my nature, because the love I have for you produces in me a desire to bless you that does not wait for a performance sufficient to justify the desire. You are already sufficient, not because of what you have done, but because of what I decided before you did anything. Rest in that. Receive in that. Do not calculate your way into whether you deserve what is coming. Open your hands. It is arriving. Now, let me speak a final word about your home specifically, about the physical space where your daily life happens, where the people you love move through their days, where the routines and the rhythms and the ordinary rituals of existence are enacted. I want to speak over that space. I am coming into that space, not as a visitor who arrives and leaves, as a presence who settles in and remains. The quality of what my presence brings, the peace, the warmth, the specific sense of sacred that marks a space where the holy dwells, is going to become a characteristic of your home, rather than an occasional experience within it. People who enter your home are going to feel something that they may or may not be able to name, but that will affect them. There will be a quality of safety in the space, a particular ease, a sense that it is possible to relax there in a way that is not possible everywhere. That quality is not a function of decoration or architecture. It is a function of presence. And I am taking up residence in the atmosphere of your home as a permanent tenant rather than a weekend guest. The people in your home are going to be affected by this. The children, if there are children, their sense of security, their quality of sleep, the specific ease with which they inhabit their days. The adults, the specific quality of their rest, the ease of their relationships with one another, the way they move through difficulty together rather than alone, the rhythm of the household as a whole, the particular character of what the space feels like when everyone is home together, when the ordinary evening happens, when the unremarkable morning unfolds. All of it is going to carry more of the quality that I carry: peace, warmth, the specific sense that the people in this space are held and cared for by something larger than what they can see. That is what my presence does to a home, and I am bringing it to yours. There is one more thing I want to give you before I close. I want to give you a specific instruction that is simple, but has the power to change everything about how you experience the season that is beginning. Every day, as soon as you become aware that you are awake, before anything else has your attention, speak directly to me. Not a long prayer, not a performance. 3 sentences or even 1 sentence from the actual state of your actual heart. What you are grateful for in this moment. What you are trusting me for today. What you need from me that you cannot provide for yourself. Those 3 things, spoken honestly and briefly, will calibrate the whole of the day that follows. They will remind you at the deepest level of your identity. You are the beloved child of a Father who is listening, who is present, who has resources you do not have, who is actively and intentionally for you in every moment of every day. Beginning the day from that identity shapes everything that follows in it. It changes the lens through which you see what happens. It changes the quality of your response to difficulty. It changes the depth of your ability to receive the good things that arrive. Begin each day by speaking to me. That practice, maintained over the days and weeks and months of the season ahead, will be one of the most significant things you do. Not because I require it as a ritual or because the blessing is contingent on it, because it keeps you calibrated to what is true when the noise of the day would otherwise recalibrate you toward what is merely urgent. I love you, always loved you. My love does not fluctuate with your performance or your feeling or the condition of your circumstances. It is constant, permanent, foundational. It was present before you were born, and it will be present beyond the last moment of time. It is the most permanent thing about your existence, and it is actively, intentionally, presently working on your behalf right now. Every moment of every day, arranging, repairing, releasing, providing, holding, healing, restoring, and celebrating the specific you that it has always, from before the beginning, been fixed upon with an attention that nothing can interrupt. Let me speak over you one final blessing before we close this time together. Not a formal religious pronouncement delivered from a distance, but a specific, personal, intentional declaration over your life from the Father who knows every detail of it and who speaks with authority over every dimension of it. Over your mind, clarity. Where confusion has been clouding your thinking, clarity is arriving. Where anxiety has been distorting your perception of reality, peace is displacing it. Where discouragement has been coloring your interpretation of circumstances, hope is restoring the accurate colors. Your mind belongs to me, and I am releasing into it the specific quality of thinking that I designed it for. Clear, grounded, creative, compassionate, capable of holding complexity without being overwhelmed, capable of rest when rest is what is needed. Over your body, strength and restoration. Where weariness has accumulated, renewal is coming. Where pain has settled, healing is moving. Where the physical system has been taxed by sustained stress, recovery is beginning. Your body is the temple of the Spirit who lives in you, and I take seriously the care of what I inhabit. Expect to feel the difference. Expect the return of energy that the season of difficulty drained. Expect to wake in the mornings ahead with more in the tank than you have been waking with. Expect healing to continue and deepen in the specific places it has been working, and to begin in the specific places it has not yet reached. Over your spirit, fullness. Where the long season of difficulty has drained your reserves and left your inner life feeling thin and depleted, fullness is coming. A replenishment that goes deeper than the exhausted places and fills them not with willpower or discipline, but with the actual presence of the Spirit, who is the source of all life. Your spirit was designed to be full, not straining after what it needs, but resting in what is abundantly available. That fullness is being restored. Over your future, hope that is not wishful thinking, but confident expectation grounded in the character of the one who holds your future in hands that have never dropped anything they were given to hold. Your future is held. It is prepared. It is being brought to pass with the same faithfulness that brought every previous promise to pass, and every previous provision to arrive, and every previous moment of darkness to yield to a dawn. What is ahead of you is better than what is behind you, not despite what you have been through, but partly because of it. Because the person walking toward the future has been shaped by the journey in ways that make them ready to receive and inhabit and steward what the future holds. You are ready. Walk toward it. And one last word, because I want you to carry this with you specifically. Do not measure my love for you against the difficulty of the season you are leaving. Some people look at a hard chapter and conclude that a God who loved them would not have allowed it. But the hardest chapters of the stories I have written have always produced the most beautiful people. Not beautiful in the surface sense, but beautiful in the sense that matters. The kind of depth and compassion and groundedness and genuine love for others that can only be carved out by difficulty. The way a sculptor carves depth into stone, not by adding material, but by removing it. What was removed in you during this season was not anything you needed. It was what was in the way of the person you were always meant to be, and the person who remains after the removing is more beautiful, more capable, more ready, more genuinely themselves than the person who entered the season. I do not apologize for using the hard chapter. I do celebrate what it produced in you, and now I release you into the abundance that the carved out, deepened, more capable version of you is ready to inhabit. Love is arriving at your home. Provision is arriving. Blessing is arriving. And you, faithful one, you are arriving at yourself, the fullest version of yourself, the version I always saw when I looked at you. Welcome home. Carry this with you into every ordinary moment of the days ahead. When the morning comes and the familiar pressures return, and the habit of bracing wants to reassert itself, come back to this. Love is arriving. Provision is on the way. Blessing has your name. When someone in your household is struggling and the weight of holding things together feels too heavy, come back to this. I am here. My presence occupies this home. My grace is sufficient for everything this family faces. When doubt whispers that what was spoken over your life was beautiful, but probably not real, come back to this. The one who spoke it cannot lie, does not forget, never abandons what he began, and is actively bringing to pass in your specific life every specific word he spoke over it. Come back to this, again and again, not because you lack faith, but because repetition is how truth becomes settled knowing. How knowing becomes the ground you stand on, rather than the thought you occasionally visit. Return to what is true until true becomes the baseline of your experience. Every promise stands. Every word holds. Every blessing is arriving. You are held, loved, seen, and deeply known by the one who made you and who is bringing you home. One more thing, and then I will let you go. In the moments when you do not feel any of what has been spoken here, when the feelings have not caught up to the truth, and the truth is sitting in your mind like a statement you believe intellectually but cannot feel, stay anyway. Feelings follow truth when truth is held long enough. Keep the truth. Keep returning to it. Keep speaking it, even when it does not feel real to speak it. Because feeling is not the measure of reality in my kingdom. Truth is the measure. And truth that is held and returned to, and spoken and chosen repeatedly, will eventually saturate all the way down to the level where you feel it as fully as you know it. Hold on. Stay with it. Let the truth do its work in you at the pace that truth works, which is sometimes slower than the feelings, but always deeper and always more lasting. You are loved, completely, always, without end. Amen. If this message found you in a place you did not expect to be found, please share it with someone whose face just came to your mind. Someone who is still in the hard chapter. Someone who needs to hear that the love is arriving, that the provision is on the way, that the blessing has their name and their exact address. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what God wants to speak into your life. The world needs more voices carrying this kind of hope, and your simple act of sharing can be the reason someone else finds exactly the message they needed at exactly the moment they needed it most.